All those moments will be lost in time. Like tears in rain. Time to die. To sleep. To sleep. Perchance to dream. Aye, there's the rub. For in that sleep of death
smiles at us all. All a man can do is smile back.
I wonder, did your friend smile at his own death?
Remember, you must
die at some point in our lives.
The darkness is creeping towards you, whether you know it or not.
People die. It is the one journey that all humans go through. And it has been a fixation of art for as long as there has been art. We try to make sense of death. We tell stories of grief because grief is one of the most intense and relatable emotions. But just like with any storytelling, there are more and less effective ways to portray grief. Today, I want to talk about the tools that writers use to discuss this chapter of life we all must face. Hi, my name is Tim, I write for television, and I think about death a lot. Let's talk about Train Dreams. Train Dreams is a 2025 picture about a logger in the late 1800s whose whole family die in a fire. He is really sad. The movie is beautiful and has lots of poetic imagery and poetic dialogue, but I found it strangely unrelatable, and I think it has to do with structure. Plots are built on change. The fundamental building blocks of plot are interesting decisions and meaningful consequences. So throughout your story, the status quo should be constantly changing. Sometimes these changes will result in mounting danger or tragic consequences. Other times, if it's a smaller movie, these changes might just be shifting power dynamics. What bugged me about Train Dreams is that its portrayal of grief was extremely flat. The hero, Robert, is sad all the time. He experiences no relief, no peaks, no valleys, no moment where he changes his life for the better or worse. Not only does this make for a fruitless plot, but it also makes for an unrelatable depiction of grief. In my experience, grief is not a presence that sits on you at all times. Grief is like a wave that hits you every now and then. When I was at my lowest, I was still going about my life, seeking joy and meaning where I could. And then I would see something or remember something, and the grief, the sadness would hit me like a wave. And then I would be stuck in it, and I would see no joy and no light. And I'd be there for hours, maybe even days, but then I'd come out of it. I'd start to crawl out and put my life back together. I think this is something that a lot of stories about grief get wrong. Grief is not static. Like good story structure, it moves in waves. Let's look at another story that does grief well. Manchester by the Sea is a 2016 movie about a working-class man who lost his family in a fire. Manchester by the Sea is built around a very effective narrative structure. It's built around a question. Can Lee recover from his grief just enough to be an adopted father to his orphaned nephew? It's helpful to imagine that there is a Lee health meter, and it goes from suicidal to just okay. In one scene, Lee seems like he's doing an alright job being a surrogate father. The meter is in the green. But then he sees his ex-wife, and the tragic memories come flooding back, and he gets drunk and gets in a bar fight. The meter is now deeply in the red. But then he gets picked up by his friends, and he has this emotional breakdown, a kind of catharsis where he cries and he is loved. And it feels like maybe this catharsis, this is the wake-up call, the part where he starts to heal. He has a sweet moment with his nephew. The meter is green again. But then he falls asleep with the stove on and wakes up to smoke, reminding him of the fire, and he backslides back into the red, telling his nephew that he can't take care of him. This is one of the signs of grief, as well as good narrative structure, the ebb and flow, the push and pull. These aren't a series of unrelated events. Each event is pushing Lee towards recovery or towards despair. Maybe the destination was always going to be the same, but on the way, there is a journey. Grief is a journey. When it comes to television, one of my favorite depictions of grief comes from the show Buffy the Vampire Slayer. In the 5th season, between battling demons and androids, Buffy comes home to find that her mother has died, suddenly, due to complications from a brain tumor. What happens next is an episode with almost no supernatural events, entirely about the very normal case of losing a loved one. It is a remarkable episode of television. The body captures the interesting way that grief affects perception. See, when you're going about your normal day, you don't really notice a lot of the things that you see in your life. If you imagine, you can only probably list a handful of the businesses that you drive by on your daily commute. Your brain tunes out all the unnecessary stuff and only retains the novel and remarkable memories. But when you experience a sudden loss, it's as if you're entering a new world. This foundational part of your life has just died, and now you are living a new life filled with new and unfamiliar things, even if they are things that you've seen every day. This is why people can often recall really crisp details about where they were when they learned about a sudden tragedy. And the body does a fantastic job in portraying this. In the minutes and hours after the death of Buffy's mom, she can't help but notice all the small details of the world that might pass by unobserved on any other day. She stares at her lawn as if it is the first time ever seeing it. Another focus of the body is the idea of negative space. Dawn is in an art class learning about this concept when Buffy tells her the news of the death. What this symbolizes is the hole left by the dead, a gaping, bottomless pit, and yet all around the pit are the normal functions of everyday life. You can't just crawl into a hole and die with them. Life goes on. You have to plan a funeral, arrange for travel, think about what you're going to wear, think about parking. And that's part of the body, the difficult physical process of daily life when there is this gaping hole at the center. As I mentioned in the opening, one of the oldest interests of art is finding meaning in death. Sometimes stories will present death as a part of a karmic cycle, a retribution that awaits those who sin. Other stories will find meaning in death, focusing on noble sacrifice and justifiable struggle. Other stories will focus on the metaphysical reward that death brings, whether it be heaven or simply the peace of mind that comes from dying for a noble cause. In some ways, art is seen as the solution to death, our one chance at immortality in the stories that we tell. One of my favorite movies about grief is Riders of Justice, a 2020 film about a soldier named Marcus, whose wife dies in a train collision. He meets with a group of hackers who believe that it was not an accident, but intentional murder by a biker gang trying to kill a high-profile witness. This sets Marcus on a quest for revenge. At this point, a typical movie would follow some very predictable beats, as Marcus has to work his way through the gang to find the people ultimately responsible for his wife's death. But this is not a typical movie. The movie is interested in how we try to find meaning in death, and in the end, how we wind up making meaning from death. And the movie makes its point with structure. See, Marcus's revenge plot keeps getting interrupted. His daughter insists he goes to therapy, he finds and rescues a sex slave, his hacker friends keep having nervous breakdowns. We, the audience, can see the straight line that this movie should be going on, but we keep getting interrupted. So we feel Marcus's frustration as his quest gets sidelined. And eventually we see that these distractions might actually be more important than vengeance. And so we see the truth, that this vengeance quest isn't about justice. It's about inventing meaning in the face of an uncaring universe. In some ways, when a loved one dies, it's like the world has ended. You find yourself living in a new place that looks just like the last one, but it's missing something so fundamental that you can't imagine that you could ever find the same joy in this world as you did in the old one. It's like living in the post-apocalypse. You have to find joy living in the ruins of what once was. Which is why The Leftovers is such a powerful show about grief, showing how in the wake of tragedy, the whole world appears mad, strange, and unfamiliar. The rules of society reveal themselves as paper-thin facades. But we can still find meaning in recognizing grief in others. We can find connection, seeing how their misery is no different than our own. And if we go full post-apocalypse, there is The Last of Us. And I'm speaking about the game specifically. It portrays grief in a very unique way. Joel is a character who is so engulfed by his grief that his only motivation in life is pain avoidance. He does everything he can to avoid the feeling of losing his daughter. He pushes away anyone whose death might affect him. He turns off his humanity, becoming the victimizer, so as not to be the victim. And while Ellie has her own sadness, her worldview is the complete opposite. She is young. She is not avoiding pain. She is seeking hope. She has a strong sense of morality and is brave and willing to do what it takes to make the world a better place. This dynamic between pain avoidance and hope seeking creates an engrossing relationship, and also helps prepare the player for the monstrous thing that they are going to have to do to keep Joel from feeling pain. The game uses grief as the bedrock for rage, for love, and for deception. It's a real masterpiece, and it's a shame that the second game turned Ellie into a psychotic serial killer. I hope you don't mind a little philosophical tangent, but I think it's worth considering what actually is a story. Like, on the one hand, a story is a lie. It's make-believe. It's a trick. But on the other hand, a story is a language, a tool the artist uses to communicate something real. And like any language, every medium of storytelling has its own rules, its own grammar to best communicate what the artist is trying to say so that the audience can understand it. So when I go on these rants about good story structure, I'm not doing it because I'm trying to be nitpicky. I'm doing it because we all want to communicate our feelings, whether they be love or death or grief. We are social animals after all. And I think we can learn from good storytellers how to be a good communicator. If you're experiencing feelings of despair and grief, communicate. Reach out to other people who have maybe gone through something similar to what you're going through. Tell your story and listen to theirs. There is no meaning in death. There is only the meaning we make together. And while we're at it, why not communicate with me? Let me know what's a story about grief that you really appreciated. Maybe one that got you through a hard time and you want to share with someone else. Leave it in the comments. I read everything you guys write. Thank you for watching. As always, I'll see you next week.